Bob and I have been very excited to kind of share what we do. We had a lot of synergy and things we do same and things we do different, even just in discussing as we've been working towards how we came up with this. And we'll tell you, we used AI to create our title and our description as we were trying to figure out what we were going to talk about and how we were going to present that to everyone. So, and we used AI for different pieces of creating this presentation for you today. So we wanted to actually practice what we were preaching and share some of that with you. I'll jump right in. Lindsay did a great job introducing us. So I'll just share, I've been at UT for 4 years. Before that, I came from the State University of New York system, where I taught for many years, and I have about 20 years of industry experience that I brought to the school also. And I'm also heavily involved with many of our professional organizations in advertising and public relations. So I still keep a heavy connection with industry, and you'll hear how I incorporate that into what we do in my classroom.
Hi, everybody. I think Lindsay did an awesome job introducing me too, but I'll just say that before I joined UT, I spent the first half of my life as an industrial organizational psychologist out in industry, and then went back, got my PhD, and started teaching at a community college in Wisconsin for more than a decade. And so I'm really excited to be here at UT since fall of 2019.
So for our agenda today, we kind of broke it up into a couple different areas we thought would be helpful for everyone. So we're going to talk about the language we use on our syllabus for our students. We're going to talk about how to assess what's best for you in your field and how we made decisions on how we're incorporating some different things into our classroom. And then we have a bunch of examples on how we actually use AI in our different types of classes that we teach. I've learned a lot from Dr. Bob on how he uses things in his class. I actually might steal some of his examples for my course planning for the fall. So it's been really interesting just collaborating and working on this from two different areas in the university. So as we get into our syllabus language, I wanted to start by sharing, there is suggested language from the Office of the Provost on what level of AI you want students to use, whether you want to go from completely open, students can use it for anything they want, whether you want to use like a moderate guideline, or you want to have a strict policy of you cannot use AI for anything in this class. And that's really for you as the individual. Dr. Bob and I actually take two different approaches. In all of my syllabi, I actually use the moderate use guidelines. I encourage the use of AI for specific assignments, and there's only certain assignments in the class that we will use AI with, and those are the only assignments that students are allowed to use AI tools to actually work through the assignment. And you'll see why as I explain some of my teaching examples and things like that. And I just use the standard language that the Provost's office has provided to us as the guideline language in the syllabus.
And as Joe shared, we take a little bit different approach. I will say that up until this semester, I used the moderate use policy, the same one Joe uses. But in working with AI, I actually worked with AI to take some policies that I had and integrate them all into a responsible use of course materials and AI tools page. And one of the things you'll notice in the second paragraph is that I also wanted to be very transparent with all of my learners that I use AI to help with the course that they're taking. And so I included that and again used AI to kind of help take language I already had and make it as student centered and as positive as possible. So if we go to the next slide, what you'll see is that when it comes to using I basically encourage students to consider it as long as they use it ethically and transparently. I give them a lot of ideas of how they could use it. But one of the things that really took it to the next level is I actually have had a lot of success using AI to help students who are struggling to learn and excel in their classes, who are really frustrated, to help them know how they can take AI prompts and use it to engage in evidence-based study. And so I haven't shared it here in the next slide, but you'll see this slide ends with here are some powerful ways to use AI to engage in evidence-based study techniques. Basically, I've got prompts for engaging in retrieval practice, engaging in space practice, engaging in deep processing, including elaboration and concrete examples and dual coding and much more. So I really tried to show them how. And then I also, with the help of AI, created a rather simple table with some of the appropriate and inappropriate ways that someone could choose to use AI.
I'll give everyone a moment to see these.
Yeah, and feel free to ask questions anytime in the chat. We'll do our best to try to follow along. But I can tell you, I've actually had students that will have reached out to me on a Friday in panic mode because they've got an exam and they're really afraid they're going to fail and they really don't know what to do to study. And for many of them, they've never even heard of AI or used it. And I've sat down and actually showed them. And the look on their face when they realize that they can have AI work through some of the struggles they're having and help them build mastery is pretty darn awesome.
That's a good segue for us into what's best for you. I wanted to talk about every one of our fields, every one of our disciplines where students are going to go work after they graduate. Hopefully, they all have jobs upon graduation. Um, every field is using AI tools in a different way. So I think a good way to assess maybe how to bring it into your classroom is to see how it's being used in your field of expertise, where students are going to go work. What are the skills that they're expected to have in the industry that they're going to go and work? And everyone's using it differently right now. Every area that I talk to is having some sort of various different way of different tools they're using, whether it's acceptable to use, not acceptable to use, how we do that ethically. So I would start by looking at your field of expertise and what is that expectation of graduates when they get out into the field, whether it's an undergraduate or a graduate student. That's kind of where I started. I talked with a lot of industry professionals on what they're doing at agencies and in corporations and how they're doing it to really see, okay, well, here's some ways that I can expose students to different tools that they're just it's expected that they know this in our field when they get out there. So
And I still reflect on Joe and I meeting together in the late fall to talk about this presentation, and both of us were, I would say, we're not early adopters, but both of us were willing to kind of just go all in and try to see how we could potentially use AI. And I really love that Joe spent a lot of time thinking about it from the industry standpoint, because I do agree that our students need to know how to use AI responsibly when they graduate. And that, if any of you've got young adults out there working in many fields, you probably know that they are already using it in quite a lot of job settings. So what I did instead of focusing on the industry, which I know is something that really I ought to do, and I do think I'm helping the students know how to responsibly use AI, at least for learning and for their own personal growth. But I went ahead and asked AI right after we met, what are some of the ways that I could potentially use you to support my efforts as a teaching professor at the university? And it identified 7 different ways. And I chose 4 that I really felt comfortable with. And the first 2 that you see on this slide are the 2 that are associated with teaching directly. So AI as your teaching assistant, where you can use it to perhaps support you in some of those time-consuming repetitive tasks that we all have when we teach, and also to try to help us be able to have some of the maybe surface level engagement occur with the support of AI so that I could focus on the more deep engagement. And then the second way is to consider AI as your learning designer. And I was definitely all in for that because I don't know about you all, but I've spent years trying every semester to improve my curriculum, and it seems like it's a never-ending process. And I really felt like part of the struggles that I have had is, I can get a lot done in the summers, I can get a lot done in winter breaks, but once a semester happens, I end up with a laundry list of things that I want to do to improve my class. And I feel like even though I've been teaching for years, there's still segments of my course that haven't benefited from some of the deep dives to really think about design as much as others. And so in this case, I challenged myself to try to use AI to generate course materials, learning activities, to help me improve interactions and discussions, to basically try to make the course more engaging, not just in the design standpoint, but also the delivery standpoint. So I'll share with you a little bit about the progress we made when we start sharing examples. So if we go to the next slide, what you're going to see is a couple of other ways that AI suggested I could use it to support my teaching. One was as a learning companion for students, and I've always been super excited about that potential. And so I went all in to see how could I actually help students know what to do when they sit down to study and how they could engage in empirically supported study methods with the support of AI. And one of the things that I really was interested in is I know it would be far better for many of our students to collaborate and study and use, evidence-based study approaches. But many of our students still think of education as a solo effort, and they still see it as somewhat based on performance instead of mastery. And so I see a lot of benefit in helping students know how they can have the illusion of a collaborative kind of study session using AI. And then the second is to also help students learn how to use AI to build lifelong learning habits. And so certainly to make sure they know AI well, that they can use AI to help personalize their own learning plans. They can use it to try to, develop their skills as critical thinkers. And also something I think is really critical and related to their intrinsic motivation to really put in the effort and ask for help is to try to provide them some opportunities to see the connections between what they're learning in the classroom and their careers, and really use AI to help guide them along the way. Now, just so that you can get an appreciation for the ways that AI suggested that I could use it, that I chose not to include, probably the big one is AI as a research assistant. I just still am hesitant because too often, if I ask AI a question that involves AI looking at the weight of the evidence on a particular topic, if I know the area well, I can pretty much see immediately that there's a distorted perspective that's provided, that they're not really getting all the data that's necessary to judge the weight of the evidence on a topic. And so I nixed that one. That's something that I'm still kind of going to take time to think through. And then the other one that was suggested was AI for community and collaboration, and AI as a way to teach people about the ethical considerations and the dark side of AI. And I will say I kind of incorporated both of those things into some of these other roles. And so I tried to see those as really just kind of companions for some of these. So I think these four roles really do share with you what I went all in on over the last academic year.
One of the examples, and I'm sure many of our professional associations have examples like this. We, as PR, we're members of the Public Relations Society of America. It's the largest global PR society of professionals. And actually, the professionals within the society actually have written materials on ethically how our industry is going to use AI, and it's updated annually. And this is an example. So I would also look at your professional associations. Um, and I'm sure there is some guidance that they're providing at this point on how these tools and is being used in your industry. So I wanted to share this one example with you. This gets us into our teaching examples. We have a bunch of them, so please feel free to ask questions as we go through. It was hard to actually show imagery of some of this because it's a live dialogue with the AI. And I'll start with the first one. So many of the classes I teach are writing intensive courses. It's public relations writing, advanced public relations writing. And we need to know how to use AI. So one of the things is write a press release for me, write a feature article for me based on this data. So I actually have students prompt ChatGPT to actually write a feature article for them based on AP style using proper grammar and technique, the inverted pyramid style. So they have to learn how to ask the AI for the right thing. And then I want them to assess the outcome. Is the outcome they've gotten, is it grammatically correct? Is it really AP style? You know, they need to be able to critically think about how the writing was produced. Does it convey the message that they want? Would it be acceptable for publications in the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or online, depending on what they prompted it for? And this gets to the core skill. And one of the reasons why I use the moderate use of AI tools is inherently as individuals, we still need to know how to write well. Nothing right now can replace good writing skills, no matter what field we're going in. So students still have to understand how to write complete sentences, how to convey a message, how to have the correct stylistic viewpoints. And they need to recognize that if they get something from an AI that's helping them brainstorm, that those are accurate. So this is just one example of let's have AI write things for us and we can see how well or how good is it that the AI tool is giving me. Okay, I want them to see that it's not 100% perfect, that they shouldn't be using AI right now to completely write and submit something for them.
All right, and just before I answer this, Jeremy put in the chat window, Joe, that he's just
Oh,
curious if we primarily use ChatGPT, and I suspect that that was our go-to, but we also might have used Uverse too.
yeah, my primary is going to ChatGPT because that's what industry is mostly using right now, aside from some secular tools in the industry. Um, I have them use that more than UTverse. So,
Yes. So for me, the first example is just a deep dive into how I used AI as a teaching assistant for over the last academic year, especially this spring. So when you think about using AI as a teaching assistant, basically the suggestion from AI was that I could ask an AI tool to help with grading and feedback, email, announcements, lecture summaries, transcripts, classroom analytics. I'm kind of excited about the classroom analytics because spending any time in Canvas analytics, you can just really be a big journey with lots of possible data you can look at. And so I think that AI would be awesome as a tool for helping to direct us to certain trends, certain issues without us having to, navigate all that data to find it. And so have it rise up to the top. So I focus mostly on the other stuff. And so I will tell you that over the last semester, I've found many, many ways to use AI. First of all, for emails, one of the things I did was just try to learn how to communicate in as student-centered, as positive, as growth-oriented ways I could. And so I assumed that I had room for improvement. And so for quite a while, I have been allowing AI with instructions, with prompts to be student-centered, to be positive, to really focus on giving growth-oriented feedback, things like that. I have used AI to craft many emails. Probably some of the most important are I have this habit of all my classes I've been doing for several years now, where usually 2 to 3 times during the semester, depending on the length of the session, I will send check-in emails to students, and I write very different emails, and I used to write them myself um, with the help of someone in the community college that I worked with who was in communication. And I would write these letters and try to put emojis in it and try to make them positive. And some of the letters would celebrate the students who are currently acing the class and basically try to just let them know that I want to focus on the process, focus on clearly the effort they're putting in, the strategies they're using, their willingness to ask for help, their willingness to be patient, their willingness to be hopeful, all these things that really motivate a growth mindset. And I fed that to AI and was pretty amazed with the suggestions that I got that really helped me kind of improve my game and really make sure that things were student centered. And so it had a way of helping me say some things that I had maybe struggled with. And so I was able to blend what I had already been using with some advice from AI and basically create a series of messages to students that would go depending on their grade at periodic points during the semester. And I can tell you that one of the things that I've noticed is many, many more. I usually get quite a lot of students, especially early in the semester, who share how excited they are to be in the class. But right now I'm seeing that, right away, if I publish my course and if I share these emails, I get a lot more emoji responses, a lot more replies from students that really suggest that how appreciative they are to get this. And the emails that I've always struggled with are the ones to students who are really struggling. And I was able to get some really good feedback from AI. And I had a much better success rate in terms of getting those students to reach out to me and to try to get back on course. And so focusing on emails, announcements, messages. And what was really cool is digital learning have helped me create a welcome video that really kind of emphasizes Star Wars themes, especially May the Force be with you. And I use that to kind of communicate how students can be successful. Well, once I was able to really train the AI to know the themes and also to know what I'm talking about and what students have learned, those letters, those emails, those messages have become much richer too. So I can write emails and letters and updates and give feedback that basically references what they've learned so far and how what they've learned will matter in their life and how the choices they've made so far in terms of their performance are really recognition of their work and the process of learning. So I use Remind for messages. One of the cool things that I was able to do with Remind is Remind and AI helped me create a series of weekday messages that are very brief, that vary from maybe once a week, a brief media piece relevant to what we're talking about that week, uh, twice a week, some sort of discussion question or something that they could think about and try to reflect on while they're going about their day. And then twice a week, something that's basically trying to help them think about an observation they could make throughout the day that's relevant to what they're currently learning. And so I've found that it's called Jedi Mind Sparks, but I find that it really has kind of created this excitement among students that they really are engaging in some important learning. There's a lot of assignments I do that have been incredibly difficult to grade, really demanding, and I've relied a lot on the support of GTAs as well as my time. So I do jigsaw classroom presentations where I have to grade not only their presentation materials and their handouts, but also their presentation themselves and some process things. In some cases, they have to create graphic organizers or write reflections. And I was able to work with AI to adjust my rubrics and ultimately train the AI to be the first kind of eyes that looked at some of the things that I was grading. And then I was able to, over time, get it to a point where I could get really good feedback reports that really are genuinely based on what I think is important, but I have to train the AI to kind of understand what I think is important. I could also make sure one of the things I feel really good about, is that I feel like the feedback I'm giving students with the support of AI is much more reliable. And I know that that might sound odd, I'm using AI, but I feel like it looks with much more objective eyes than I might. And especially for some areas that I might not have the expertise, like how to really judge some of the qualities of their presentation and the layout of their slides and things like that. So it really gives good feedback. And I was able to really work with AI to emphasize the strength-based feedback. And so I got students used to the fact that I'm going to always point out for each dimension of a rubric, 3 things they did really, really well, and then 1 thing that's kind of like a concrete suggestion for how they can improve next time. And I found that the students really appreciate that. They're kind of blown away. But I've seen, as we now move from Jigsaw 1 to Jigsaw 2, much more improvement, much more of an appreciation because the feedback is much more structured. It really does give them feedback on every element of the rubric, and I'm able to save a lot of energy and time by focusing on spending most of it just trying to work with AI to train it so that it could be an asset to help me grade these things. The other things that I've done that were really kind of fun, I took all of the mid-course reports. So I do a mid-course, and then of course we have Tennessee Voice end-of-course evaluations. I gave all of my mid-course feedback for each class to AI, and that way I don't have to try to synthesize it. I asked it to synthesize and make recommendations for concrete ways I could improve the class, for what the strengths were and what were some of the areas where I need to really work. And I found that extremely helpful. And one of the things that really that triggered for me is I've been working with a colleague who had been really paranoid about looking at their Tennessee Voice. And I know there's some of us like that really don't like clicking open to see those. This particular colleague is incredible. And so I worked with them to take all of their course evaluations since they've been at UT and create and generate a report that showed all the themes of the positive things that they're doing and put that into a single report because it really did matter to their mood, their where they were right now. And then I created a separate report with some of the concrete things they could do to improve. And that particular faculty member really appreciated the opportunity to kind of see how many good things their students were saying, and in fact, integrated that into their adjusted teaching philosophy with evidence from student quotations that were typical or exemplary of what it is that students on average said about them over the years. And so that was really cool. Finally, I've used it for letters of recommendation. I write a lot of letters, and I feel like I write really good letters on my own, but it's a lot of work. And so what I did is I created a Google form that requires students who've asked me for a letter of recommendation to help remind me of all the things they've done, the classes they've had with me, etc., the experiences that we've had together, as well as sharing things like their personal statements and their CVs, and then meeting with me. And I have AI Companion capture that on Zoom, and then all that information is used. I fed in the way that I write recommendations, and all of that was used to basically generate letters. And most recently, I've been having people come to my, especially my upper level classes, to talk to my students. And I had a program director from a master's degree program that a lot of our students are interested in. It was UT Chattanooga. And he started his presentation to my class with, first of all, I want to tell you, if you ever need a letter of recommendation, if Bob writes one for you, it's going to be amazing. And I really wanted to just kind of slip in, well, actually, AI helped me too, but I didn't, of course. But that to me, when you write more than 30, 40 letters of recommendation, that really provided a way for me to trim down and still be productive, but not have to spend entire days just focused on trying to write letters of recommendations.
Dr.
Finally,
Bob,
yeah, go ahead.
sorry, there's one question.
Yeah.
How do you deal with student privacy?
How do I deal with student privacy? Well, basically, the students fill out a Google form for me, and then I take that data and de-identify it, and then put it into AI and ask for help. And so that's what I do. But it is an issue that I think about. The final thing was regular and substantive interaction. There's been a lot of dialogue about that. That's basically instructor-student interaction. I used AI, fed AI all the office hours I have, all the things that I think I do, as well as the typical schedule for a lecturer, teaching 4 classes a semester, and used it to try to think about how to justify and really feel confident that I'm providing enough opportunity for regular and substantive interaction. And AI helped generate a plan that I could actually put in my syllabus to share with students how it is that I engage in regular and substantive interaction with them. And to me, that was extremely helpful because I think all of us struggle, especially if you're teaching 4 classes a semester, to know how to spend that time and provide the opportunity for regular and substantive interaction, but how much is enough? And I really got some good advice from that. So these are some of the things. What you'll see on the right-hand side is a sample of how AI helped me create some of the welcome documents, overview documents, instructions. So you can see, connected it to Star Wars, greetings, rebels of lifespan psychology, welcome aboard, a path from a Padawan learner. All this stuff was really helped by me being able to think with AI. And I want to make sure that you also appreciate it isn't an easy process. It could be hours scattered across multiple days before I finally settle on something that really works for me. And so sometimes I expect the AI to want to reach out, slap me on the face because I keep saying, no, that's not good enough. I need something better and that kind of thing. But it really does, it's like the perfect companion because when you do that, when you challenge it, when you tell it you're not happy, it just keeps on going and trying to make you happy, trying to help you appreciate what you're looking for. And I am willing to share my RSI prompts as well as the RSI summaries. Pretty much everything I've done, I'm willing to share.
Great. The second example that I have is kind of, I call it proofreading, but it's style reading, proofreading. So I actually do a series of things where after students have completed stuff for projects, completed written assignments for the class, in the the two sections I teach, it's all about repetitive writing to become a good writer. There's only so much feedback I can give to a student. So I actually encourage students after they've written something, maybe after I've given them feedback, to run their original through an AI to see what feedback they get from the AI also, to actually learn from all of that feedback they're getting. Whether it's a stylistic thing, our writing style's an AP style mostly. So most of the AI tools know AP style. Um, and to really give them feedback on a writing style. Um, the general reading level of the US population is unfortunately a sixth grade reading level. So a lot of the things that we do in public relations and in public communication is students have to get used to writing again at an elementary school reading level, which is very hard because in our high school classes and in our composition classes in college, we want them to write at a higher level. I have to unteach them how to do that and to write again at an elementary school level. And they can get some really good feedback from AI on just how to simplify and concisely write, maybe larger words they're using or larger sentences they're using, aside from the feedback that I'm also giving them. So I tell them, use this as a way to get feedback on the things you write, whether it's content that's going to the media, whether it's, brochures and web content, whether it's social media posts and content. AI can review for all of these different types of stuff as long as you've given the AI some criteria on what you're looking for. So it's perfect.
Awesome. So hopefully the proofreading, by the way, I've used Grammarly for many years, and I am all in because of all the things I want to think about. I love having the help of AI to capture some of those crazy little grammatical errors that I make just because I'm working so fast and working so hard. And so I have no trouble using AI like Grammarly for that. Um, I also went all in on using AI as a learning designer. And so in this case, you could ask AI to help you build deeper, meaningful learning experiences. And I could be really specific. I want curriculum that engages students and that also is going to be the kind of work that's going to produce lasting learning. And so to me, I tell it the kinds of of things that I want this curriculum to require of students: deep processing, the development of accurate metacognition, the ability to engage in retrieval practice and apply what they learn and connect it to their careers, things like that. And so some of the things that I did with AI, I put enhanced because I gave it, just like I did with many of my communications, access to some of my learning activities and basically asked for help. I want to make these even more engaging. I want to make these even more relevant. I want to make these more fun. And if there's a way that I can connect it to this Star Wars theme, I'd like to do that because students kind of like that. And so I took something that was called Ask Dr. Bob, that was primarily a place for students to go to ask questions about muddy points or perhaps to start a conversation about resources they think I could add to the course, things like that. And AI suggested that I rename it, gave me many, many options. And then I even asked, based on the kind of students I have, what do you think would really fly the best? And it turned out to be Yoda's circle with a really cool little icon of a green circle. And then I also fed a project that I have where I try to get students throughout the course, this is lifespan psychology, to engage with media and relate it to their own development across the lifespan. So, for example, when maybe talking about their infancy, maybe share media of lullabies that their parents sang to them, or media that was really popular during that time that might have sparked the romance between their parents, things like that, or other media throughout their life that captures how their development progressed and some of the themes that are relevant to the course concepts. And so I was able to modify that and create the soundtrack of my life. And with the help of AI, to be able to also get the students to think out of the box, give them a little more autonomy so they could share a song or a lyric, a scene from a movie or a TV show, a quote, a poem, an image, a piece of art, a photo, spoken word, or any media. Now, what you can't see in the little thing I shared you is I was able to work with AI to do the kinds of things that we often don't have time for. For example, for every single chapter, I was able to identify not only examples of a full credit contribution or post to this assignment, but also full credit examples of the kinds of replies that I'm looking for from students as they engage with each other and talk about this. I was also able to share really clearly why it is that I ask students to use this and to try to get students excited. So one other thing that I did was I was able to create an extra credit assignment. I've always had one. I used to call it the self-motivated learning activity, which is really an opportunity for students to pick anything that they want to go deep in and then to ultimately reflect on it and earn credit, things that often aren't covered in the class. And so I was able to create this self-directed deep dive learning activity and update my work so that it was even better. And so I feel really, really good about a course for the first time where everything has examples, everything has really good student-centered instructions, things like that. And just so you know, when I asked AI, how much time did I spend over the last several months working with you as an AI designer? It came back and actually suggested that I had worked more than 75 hours. And it even asked if I would like it to write up what I should add to my teaching reports for my annual review or for my CV. And that was pretty darn impressive. So I was really happy with that.
The other types of classes I teach are more data analytics classes. So I teach a class every fall in social media analytics, and I teach a class every spring in data analytics for advertising and public relations. So I leave a few week segment at the end of each of those courses to really have the students practice using AI to analyze the data that we get from these types of tools and how industry is using it. So our industry, our field of work when students graduate is already doing this. Um, they're inputting tons of social media data from the channels that our organizations manage and all the comments that come in to really run thematic analysis, sentiment analysis, look for trends in what's being talked about in large blocks of text. Most of the tools that we use academically to do that from a research standpoint, most of our professional field, our industry corporations aren't purchasing those types of tools. So before they were doing that a lot manually. I want to cover with the students at the beginning of the semester how we do this so they understand how it's actually done before we jump into an AI running a lot of these analyses for us so that we understand if the output doesn't look right, we know it doesn't look right. There's something wrong with this output. I may not know what is wrong, but I know it's wrong and I know to go back and ask questions or look at that data set in a different way to figure out why is the output wrong. And that's really mirroring how our industry is using in the fields of advertising, public relations, marketing, external communications, things like that. So I really do a few week deep dive where I've given them data from social media channels, from company data, things like that. We actually run analysis for live organizations in our community and provide reports for different nonprofits and even schools within the university. we've done that for them to really kind of share and practice how these tools can live help us when we're out in the field. It's really interesting some of the feedback that the AI gives us, depending on the industry or what's being talked about in comments, and on discussion boards and things like that. Um, and then one of the last things on there is competitor analysis, where you're having AI assess two or three different competitors and what the content is that they're posting, when they're posting it, how they're posting it, and things like that. I found it really interesting. I don't have to go and scrape data from a social media channel because most of that is public on a page. I can tell ChatGPT, look up these three handles in Facebook, analyze the last year of posts, tell me what is different between the three pages of company posts, tell me if there's a significant difference in the date and time that they're posting. I can give it kind of all of these and really get, a good, like, it's about 80% pretty good of what it's giving me. And that's been surprising to me. Whereas before I'd have to like create some Python tool to go and scrape all the data. And being a PR person, I don't like coding. I don't like doing that. So I'd have to hunt down a friend, phone a friend to write Python code for me, or beg someone in another department that did that, that knew Python. So it's been really interesting. And, even it not only gives them like a text written report, it'll output charts and graphs and things of the data for them, word clouds, and they can really start kind of asking some of those deeper questions then once they get that output. But I want students to start building that critical thinking skill. Is how good is what I'm looking at? And then based on that, what decisions can I start making, or what further questions do I need to ask? How would I present this to the leaders of my organization or a client if I work to an agency? So this really kind of deep dives into that. And we spend about 3 weeks of class kind of doing a lot of this and developing those more critical thinking skills.
Nice. And I'm going to be really brief because I want to make sure we have time for our lessons learned. So I don't know, Joe, we might want to skip our fourth example after this. But I also used AI as a learning companion for students. And probably one of the things you'll see posted on the right is it says, "Talk it out, lifespan development for future nurses." I have a whole list of things that I've always wanted to do with my curriculum. I just don't have time. And one of them was for each of the modules to have an opportunity to share with students questions that they could ask of others or ask of themselves to reflect on everything they're learning. And certainly, of course, in lifespan development, I think that's important. So I worked with AI to create a general guide of questions that align with each week of the course, that give them an opportunity to have really meaningful conversations with people they care about what they're learning. But then I went beyond that and worked with AI to try to create guides for conversations about the class for nurses, because many of the students who take lifespan psychology are nurses. I also created a separate guide for students who are now or will soon be parents. And then I created another guide for students that wanted to have conversations with their family or their siblings, about, or their partner about some of what they were learning, maybe with their partner about all their learning related to parenting, things like that. I created other guides that help students think about observations they could make each week as they go about their day and help them reflect on what they're learning. And then a final guide for each module that identifies rich media, podcasts, TED Talks, other kinds of things that students could engage with to really deepen their understanding of what they're learning. And so I do a lot of workshops. I also created AI prompts that students could use, and I'm going to incorporate it into the workshops to actually use the things that I'm teaching them how to do in my workshops. And so I feel much better that they'll know how to actually start engaging in some of the evidence-based strategies.
We're gonna kind of skip over our example 4, but they will be in the presentation that's shared from both Dr. Bob and I. Because we really want to talk about like some of the lessons that we've learned as we've done all of this, and we kind of, as we talked about it, learned some similar lessons. So we thought that'd be good to share.
Yeah, so AI can definitely help a lot, but it can be overwhelming. I find that a lot of times I would have a really long, meaningful conversation with AI and then just feel so overwhelmed with different ideas and where I wanted to go that I wouldn't go back to it for a couple of days. I needed time to process and think about what I wanted to do because there were so many wonderful opportunities. Also, I think we all know you got to be mindful when you use AI. It definitely hallucinates. There are times when I'm like, where did that come from? And it's also forgetful. I call it dementia. And I thought maybe I had discovered something, but I looked in the literature and there's actually other people who have referred to AI as having dementia. And so a lot of times I'd have to re-educate it again about what it is we're doing because it would forget, probably because the sessions were over many days, it would forget some of the context that was really important. So one of the things I learned is you literally need to spend a lot of time sharing context with AI. You could spend your first day just talking to AI about what you believe in your values, what your philosophy is, the kinds of things you like to do, everything you can share about your students, etc. And then finally, make sure you also appreciate all this time I saved isn't time that I can't now spend on regular and substantive interaction. In fact, it gives me the opportunity to do that in a much deeper way and not be lost in just sending emails and messages, but to be able to meet with students in more meaningful ways. Now, the next slide is what AI suggested we should all learn from today's presentation. So basically, prompting is a new pedagogical skill. I totally agree with that. AI can save time and it also sparks reimagination. 100% agree with that. You are still the pedagogical core. I can't tell you how many times that uh, that really felt good to have AI remind me of that. Students need support, boundaries, and agency when they use AI. And going all in means becoming a learner again. I got to tell you, I've been teaching for a long time and have been thinking about retirement. But now I'm kind of excited. I don't know if I want to retire so quickly because I really see a lot of opportunities with AI to finally have the kind of courses that I've always wanted to have. And it really seemed difficult with our workload to create those kind of courses. So thank you all.
I know we're a little over time, but if anyone has any questions that you'd like to ask, um, we really appreciate it. We hope everyone learns something that you're able to take back and start using. And we're both happy to have conversations at any time. Um, or if you want to sit down and brainstorm through stuff, I know usually it's helpful for me to have a conversation and bounce ideas back and forth. So we're really accessible for that.
Absolutely. I'd meet with any one of you one-on-one and help you work through AI and get comfortable with it if you'd like to.